Well, good morning. This is Charles Felix, South Florida Hospital News and Healthcare Report, and we're starting a new series relating to insurance, particularly disability insurance for physicians and other people in the healthcare business. And today we have two experts with us that will be with us today and a continuing series in the future. First, I want to introduce DABDOUB. And Eddie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you. Good morning. Nice to be here with you. I have been practicing close to 20 years. I've specialized my law practice on disability insurance claims, and I have been representing physicians, especially of all sorts of medical specialties. And over the years, we've grown as a law firm, but we still specialize in disability insurance claim with a particular focus on representing physicians with what we in the industry call own occupation insurance policies.
Great, thank you. Thank you. And next I want to introduce our insurance person to our panel, and that is Howard WOLKOWITZ. Howard, introduce yourself.
Good morning. I entered the insurance and financial services industry 31 years ago. And in that period of time, I have served on a hospital governing board. I've spoken at many healthcare conferences. I've participated on panels. I actually published a book, Health of Your Wealth, Your Financial Guide to What They Never Taught You in medical school, and I created a version for nurses. I've been really indoctrinated myself in the medical community for the last 31 years, so I have a lot of personal experience in this field, and I'm happy to be part of this panel today.
Great, great. So today we're going to have a series of questions, kind of a back and forth to truly understand what disability insurance is all about, is I would say the before and the after. Okay, understanding that what you need to get and what happens when you get it, and maybe there's an issue relating to the insurance company. So I'm going to start off with Howard. Howard, can you explain to us the difference between a true owned occupation and a modified occupation policy?
Sure. Before I do that, I think that what we want to put out there is that doctors have different areas of specialty. So, for example, a primary care doctor operates at one level. A doctor who has medical practice and a surgeon operates at another level. So the ONOC definition is very interesting because companies have different variations of ONOC. Particularly, there's ONOC working and ONOC in not working. And the difference is that, for example, University of Miami has a group contract available to all doctors. It's basically ONOC, but not working. So if you're a surgeon and you're making $20,000 a month at your job and you have a disability policy, and let's say you can't be a surgeon anymore, but you could still have an office practice, what happens to your policy? Well, in the case of there's an offset provision. So what happens is if you are making $20,000 a month and you go on claim and then you do something else that's not surgery, but could be teaching, administration, medical director, there's an offset provision. So if you're making $10,000 a month in a new job, but you have a $20,000 benefit, the offset provision says we're only going to pay you $10,000 a month on your disability policy, even though you're paying for $20,000, because it's an offset provision. And the insurance company's justification is that we made you whole. You had $20,000 a month income, you're making $10,000 and you're getting $10,000 from disability, so you're making $20,000. So you're okay from our perspective. Whereas if you have an ONOC and working definition, you basically can get your full benefit on your disability policy and your full income from another policy. Some people call it double dipping, but it's perfectly legal if you have that type of contract.
Eddie, from your perspective.
I think that's exactly right. You've shown the main differences between what's a group disability insurance provided through employment and the individual disability insurance policy that's designed for you to insure your particular occupation. And what I see on the claims side lines up with what Howard is describing. And so if you're specializing in an occupation, especially if you're a surgeon, I think it's particularly important to get an own occupation insurance policy that compensates you if you are unable to engage in the duties of your specific occupation, even if you carry on practicing in another capacity. And I agree, Howard, I don't see it as double dipping because I see it as you paid for this better product to insure your particular occupation, which you've probably spent, a decade training and being educated for.
Great. Wonderful. That's really good. Eddie, I'm going to go to you now for a second. On the legal side, how do you handle a non-disclosure issue in the application?
That's a great question, and let me just explain for your viewers what we mean by a non-disclosure. On the application side, someone who's applying for insurance gets a form asking about the medical information, occupation information, and financial information, and you want to fully disclose all of it. And there are situations, I've handled these cases before, for whatever reason, the person applying for the insurance policy did not remember, or maybe it was too attenuated, maybe it was more than 5 years ago, maybe it was 10 years ago, but they did not remember something, or for whatever reason, they didn't fully disclose something in the application process. Now, where it becomes a problem, Charles, is down the line when a claim for disability benefits is submitted. If it is submitted within 2 years of the effective date of the insurance policy, the insurance company is likely going to conduct a review to see if there is any inconsistent information or any missing information in the application process. And if that is the case, they may rescind the insurance policy, refund the premiums paid up to that point, but certainly no benefits will be paid. And so what I like to tell people is, if you have a situation of a potential non-disclosure, it doesn't mean the claim is automatically going to be denied and your insurance policy is going to be rescinded. It may be immaterial. The non-disclosure may not be, in the grand scheme of things, a big deal. And it's a case-by-case basis, so we have to analyze what the particular situation is. But there are ways legally to deal with it, and that's something we've been doing for about 20 years.
Howard, from your standpoint, when applying for a disability insurance, what is the big issue you see with physician applications?
There's a couple of issues. Number one is if the agent is just trying to sell a policy and not taking the time to put down or even ask the question to try to understand. For example, you're a physician and your income's $500,000 and you can document it and you're going to get disability insurance based on $500,000 income. You're going to get you can get up to 70% of your coverage. And the thought process there, by the way, is that it's a tax-free benefit. So if we give you 70% of your income tax-free, you're made whole. So that's one issue. The other issue is to determine the $500,000, how much comes from surgery, how much comes from office, how much comes from consulting, how much comes from speaking. Because if you're a surgeon, there's a lot of reasons you can become disabled, versus if you're a primary doctor, they would not create a disability. For example, bad back, or what you would call skeletal issues. If you're a surgeon, these are very critical. If you're not a surgeon, not as critical. So what I try to do when I take an application is first ask questions and understand what is your income, what are you documenting, and what are all your sources of income. And I'll actually put it down by dollar and percent if I have it, so that it's clear what we want to accomplish. And then the other point is, once you know that, then you know what definitions are important.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And to Howard's point here, I think when you are applying for insurance in the first place, you need the right agent. Because a lot of the times what I see is the agent didn't properly document what was being told to him or her, or didn't spend the time to go through that application thoroughly to elicit all the accurate answers. And that can backfire down the line.
So is it possible that sometimes people are oversold or undersold disability insurance because the agent is not really aware of what the particular need is and why the coverage would be important for a certain person?
I think so. That's a fair statement.
Howard, I'm going to go back to you for a second. From a broker perspective, what are the top 3 things a physician should have in their disability coverage?
That's pretty cut and dry. Based on the conversation that we've had, number 1 for me is the definition of ONOC. There's UROC, there's ONOC, there's ONOC and working, there's ONOC and not working. I think it's very important that physicians taking on that coverage, they understand the different options and what applies to them and what doesn't. I think that's critical. The second thing is mental and nervous and stress that is downplayed by the companies that offer disability insurance but don't offer those contracts. The whole life companies tend to all offer disability coverage, but do not have, they have a 2-year limitation on mental nervous stress, and they generally have a ONOC and not working. So that's number 2. The other thing is, and I've used it incredibly successfully, is guaranteed insurability. If you're a resident or a new doctor and you're making $200,000 a year, you can only qualify for disability insurance based on $200,000. But what happens when you start making 3? You're making 4, you're making 5, you're making whatever, and your lifestyle increases and you want more disability insurance? Well, you can do it. You have to start the process again, you have to qualify again, and you may or may not get it. And you're older, so the price is going to be higher, and if your health is a little different, you may get a different rating, which would cause increase in premium. So what I do is I max into the contract what's called guaranteed insurability. So generally every year, or sometimes some of the companies are every 2 years, as your income increases, you don't have to reapply for disability insurance. You just fill out an increase form and you can get more and more coverage based on that. And you might say to somebody who's 30 or 35, what's the big deal? Well, if you're a surgeon, it's a major big deal. You get an fender bender, you get a musculoskeletal issue, and worse. You go to a doctor, you're complaining of stress, you're complaining you can't sleep, you're complaining that the kids are up late, doctor puts you on antidepressants. Try to get a disability policy that's any good once you have health history. The things that consumers to this day don't understand, the days of hiding facts are over. The insurance companies, every one of them, they have access to. Why? Because you give them permission when you sign the application. They do a script check. They know every script where it has nothing to do with the doctor writing the script. It has to do with not even going to the pharmacy. But if you go to the pharmacy and you use your insurance card, that's it. It's a permanent record. Even if you never take that medication, there's a permanent record that you had a script and you filled the script. Now you got to explain that whole situation. Also, doctor check. If you've been to a doctor, the key is if you use your insurance, there's a permanent record forever. So the days of hiding out are beyond over. So what I try to do up front is get it done right the first time and completely, so we don't have to go through this process again.
I think that's right. If I could echo those three things that a physician would want in their insurance policy. Absolutely, number one, a true own occupation definition. I'll give you an example. My law firm won a lawsuit last year for a liver transplant surgeon. And he had an own occupation insurance policy with a medical specialty definition, which we in the industry know and understand means it's his ability to work in the medical specialty as a liver transplant surgeon. It was sold to him that way. Regrettably, that insurance company litigated the case with us because our client, while he stopped performing liver transplants, he continued performing other general surgeries on the liver. And they denied his claim for total disability. But we won that lawsuit because the court looked at the medical specialty definition and said, you insured his occupation as a transplant surgeon. If he cannot do transplants, which was an established fact, he's no longer a transplant surgeon, even if he works in another capacity. So the right definition of what it means for your own occupation is paramount. Second, I also agree, the cost of living increase. Lots of my clients and your clients probably take these insurance policies out when they're in their maybe 30s.
Yeah.
And the trajectory of their income, it goes way up. And my average client's age is maybe in the mid-50s. And no one buys disability insurance planning to become disabled. But you have to buy disability insurance with an eye down the road as your income increases. So you want that guaranteed insurability so that your insurance benefit, the monthly benefit amount, will increase and keep pace with your earnings over the years. And on top of that, it's a cost of living increase, where if you do have a disability insurance claim, annually you want that benefit that you are being paid by the insurance company every month to increase, to keep up with inflation, etc. And what I like to pair that also with the lifetime rider. I think our lifetime rider, so your benefits, if you become disabled, do not end at age 65, but instead continues to be paid out for the remainder of your life. And then the last point I'd make is the mental health limitation. We are seeing increasingly the demands of work creating mental health issues and the stresses of working as a surgeon, etc. So I see a lot more disability insurance claims for physicians and surgeons because of mental health illnesses. And many disability insurance policies will limit payments for mental health related disabilities to 24 months. You want to have a disability insurance policy if you can negotiate it or find an insurance company that's willing to allow it, that does not put that 24-month cap on the benefit.
That's right. So Charles, he said this is the most critical. We have all seen in journals articles about physician burnout. I mean, it's mainstream. What people may not understand is everything that you talked about is burnout. Mental nervous stress is burnout. And think about it this way. To me, the most important thing you said, I experience all the time. Nobody ever buys any insurance thinking they're going to use it. Nobody buys hurricane insurance thinking that they're going to use it. Certainly with disability, and the truth is you may never use it. I had I had 2 disability policies. I never used it, but you know what? Here's my theory about what we're talking about. Seatbelts. I saw a sign on the highway that says buckle up or pay a fine. Now, you don't have to tell me to buckle up or pay a fine. I buckle up not because I think I'm going to get in a car accident. I buckle up in case I'm going to get in a car accident. And your point, which is a great point, is that if you're going to spend tens of thousands of dollars on insurance, get it right, and don't think about, I may not use it, think about if I'm going to use it, am I going to be covered or not? Which is, if it was as clean as we would like it to be, you wouldn't be in business, right? You wouldn't be defending doctors for not paying claims if everything was cut and dry.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And to piggyback on that comment, you may know this stat better than I do, but I believe it's somewhere 5-1 in terms of the likelihood of someone dying before age 65 than becoming disabled. You're 5 or 6 times more likely.
Yeah, you're more likely to get disabled than to die.
Yeah.
But yet,
everyone's buying life insurance before disability insurance, right?
Yes.
And if you are a physician or a surgeon, and you have been making a lot of money over the years, you have a certain lifestyle now. And so the impact of that income being taken away is dramatic. And so you have to think early in your career to lock in good disability insurance coverage, something that grows with you.
Absolutely. You know, Charles, there's something very interesting that's happening right now in this conversation. There's two markets here. Obviously, the market of people who already have policies, maybe going back to your policy and reviewing it, but the young people who are thinking about buying disability, the young surgeons, young specialists, they're in a unique place now because they can lock in the new contracts that have basically the old definitions of 10, 20 years ago. I have them back, and I am able to explain them and package them in a way so that it fits with the person. But the importance of locking in your age, because at this stage, your age and your health is as good as it's going to be. So you're locking in a guaranteed premium at your age, which I can tell you from experience, if you've had disability insurance, as you get older, it gets easier and easier to pay the premium. It's like anything else in life, like a mortgage payment, you know, if your income increases. But it's so important to get it right. And the point that you started talking about is we're in a new era now. Doctors are not setting up their own practice. They're going to work for hospitals, they're going to work for groups, which means they're getting group coverage. And they don't understand, because I've had it, well, I have a group coverage, why do I need an individual coverage? Well, the answer to that is go through the definitions of your group coverage, see what you're covered for, go through an individual and see what you're covered for. I think you should have both because you have a hedge, because the group generally is not portable. And unless you're planning on staying in that company for the rest of your life, the group's worthless. I mean, it's good at the moment. It's a short-term play. It's not a long-term play. So some of the things that I heard from you is this is a lifetime investment, a disability, like a life insurance policy. Yeah. It's a lifetime investment.
Yeah. Look, I think he's absolutely right. There is a massive difference between group disability insurance and own occupation, individual disability insurance. So much so, Charles, I'll tell you that I purchased individual disability insurance policies as soon as I could start to afford it. Early in my career, I've locked in those insurance policies. I do not have group disability insurance. On top of the differences in the definitions, and we know these are two radically different products. And again, if you're a surgeon or a physician, how these two different products will pay out if you become disabled are completely different. I'll add the legal dimension to it. Group disability insurance policies are almost always governed by a federal statute called ERISA. Whereas individual disability insurance policy is governed by the state law in the state in which you purchase the insurance policy. that's hugely important, because ERISA, E-R-I-S-A, Employee Retirement Income Security Act, has evolved over the years as a body of federal common law in the court system that is now much more favorable for insurance companies. So what I have is a situation, Howard, I'll tell you, I have had clients who have a group disability insurance policy with company X and an individual disability insurance policy with another insurance company. And in my law firm, we know, my attorneys know, that ERISA insurance policy is going to get treated so much differently by that insurance company because the law affords them more protections. It's more likely your claim is going to get denied on the group side than on the individual side. Right. And if you litigate it, it is more likely the insurance company is going to offer a much lower settlement on the group side than it would on the individual side. So you could have a client, let's take an orthopedic surgeon, same case, but two different insurance policies. One is group, one is individual. That individual insurance policy is more likely to approve, and if we end up in litigation, more likely to offer a reasonable settlement, case-by-case basis, right? In contrast to the group, because the likelihood of insurance companies winning statistically on the group side is higher than it is on the individual side. So that's the legal perspective on how these two insurance products are not just different in what the products offer, but in how the law applies to both.
So, and again, for both of you, if I'm a young doctor, I'm going to go above a resident, I'm going to go a doctor who's working within a practice, maybe not a senior partner, but just got admitted into a practice, making a good living. They're not thinking about dying, they're not thinking about having to go into disability. But I can guarantee their family is, because the family is now living a lifestyle to do that. What do they need to know today from not only a perspective of an insurance type policy to buy, but from a legal sense, what they need to know when looking at a policy or talking to an agent, and the right questions to ask? Because it's only, I look at it from a standpoint of, it's a marriage to a certain degree, okay? And if I'm going into a marriage and I get a prenup, okay, it's basically the same thing. I need to know what's going to happen at the end, okay? So legally, what do they need to do, Eddie? What do they need? What are the right questions to ask? What are the right questions to ask Howard?
Well, I think
I'm going to let you answer the question, but I'm going to give you a pre-comment because you're going to be able to respond to it better than I. This is a serious but subtle thing that confuses a lot of people. Contestability, period. If you buy a life insurance policy, after 2 years, the contestability policy is over. Even if you were not that person, if you were an imposter, if somebody else did the physical, it doesn't matter. After 2 years, the contestability period is over. You die, your family gets paid. End of story. Disability insurance and long-term care insurance, the contestability period goes on forever. So you asked a great question, but since he has to litigate contracts, I'm now going to defer to you.
I think the most important thing is if you are looking at getting disability and life insurance, and this is early in your career, first, it's not a question of should you. This is an investment in your career, in your family.
It's family planning.
It absolutely is. You can't do family planning without it, I think. But I think what you do need is someone with the industry knowledge like Howard. All right, Howard and I have spoken a lot about the overlap between our industries, and a lot of the reasons people come to me could have been avoided if they sat with someone like Howard. So you have to do your homework, yes? When you are choosing the agent that you want to get your disability. Not everybody is the same. Not everybody comes with the same level of expertise, knowledge, and experience that Howard has. And then, of course, I am always available in case a claim gets denied or someone needs to submit a claim in the first place. That's where we handle the legal side of it.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's important to understand what you need at the very beginning. I don't know, Howard will probably go into is you never want to go into a single focused agent that sells only one product from one company because you're really not getting a full landscape of the insurance industry and having availability of product.
It's a good point.
Right.
You know, Charles, you asked me earlier about what about if somebody doesn't want disability insurance? Fine. Then the next question would be, are you prepared to self-insure that risk of becoming partially or permanently disabled, losing your income, and it depends on a lot of moving parts, your net worth, your assets, what else you're skilled, what else you can do. My philosophy has always been that my job's not to talk anybody into buying insurance. That's not my job. To me, somebody should be able to make that decision on their own. And once they make that decision, I can help them find the right solution for that decision. But if somebody doesn't want disability insurance, I'm not going to tell them they need it. I'm going to tell them that's fine, but you need to think out, you need to go to plan B and say, if God forbid that happens, now what?
And a point of emphasis here, when we speak about disability, let's remember the context. It doesn't mean disability in layman's terms.
Right.
As we generally think about it, it means disability as in the definition of disability in the insurance policy. And if you're an orthopedic surgeon and you injure your wrist, or you have back pain, neck pain, and you cannot consistently perform surgeries, you're disabled. And so you may be able to continue working in some other capacity, but you cannot work in your specialty.
I can give you a great example because it happened to me. I had a benign tumor a couple of years ago growing actually inside my nerve strands. I didn't even realize I had nerve strands but they took it out. But this hand's still kind of nummy. Sometimes it gets spasms. If I was a surgeon, from a malpractice perspective, I wouldn't do surgery, but otherwise I'm fine. I could do a million other things as far as surgery.
We won a lawsuit a few years ago for a dentist who was in a car accident and had some injuries to the cervical spine that caused pain and numbness to radiate down his arm, into the hands, weakness, loss of sensation. The gentleman was perfectly fine otherwise. Right. He just had no ability to safely perform dental procedures. Won that case too.
And that's why it's important at the very beginning, what I hear from both of you, is make sure that definition of disability is very clear in the policy, and because that's what it's going to be based on. You don't want a general definition. You want a specific definition relating to your profession.
What is it that you do?
Right.
How do you get yourself insured? And the group disability insurance policies don't generally get that job done.
Right. So again, if you are part of a plan or part of a hospital and one of your benefits are getting a group disability policy, hey, nice to have, but not necessarily rely on it for the long term.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, we're going to kind of finish up our session here and look forward to this. In about another month, we'll have another session also relating to other nuances relating to disability and what you need to know. So I want to thank both Howard and Eddie. And if you can give your information, Howard, your name and just phone number, and then we'll put it up on the screen when we close out.
Howard Wolkowitz. You can reach me at howard@lifeinsure.com. That's LIFEINSUREASSURE.com. You can call me at 954-558-3673.
Eddie?
Edward DABDOUB, longtermdisability.net, 305-754-2000.
And this is Charles Felix. Again, we want to thank you for tuning in today. and look forward to seeing you all at our next webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.